أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، حمدا كثيرا طيبا طاهرا مباركا، والصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا من لدنك علما نافعا يا أرحم الراحمين. All praises due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and peace and blessings be upon His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In continuing with the fiqh of tahara, and we finished last week with the rulings of istinja, of cleaning oneself after going to the bathroom, and today we'll begin inshallah with the rulings of wudu. The definition of wudu linguistically means cleanliness or goodness when it comes to cleaning, and also comes from the meaning al-wada'a, which is that which is shiny. That which is shiny. In the Shari'i or the Islamic definition, wudu is the washing of the three parts of the body and the wiping of the head. And the wiping of the head. Because as we'll come to know, that the obligatory parts of wudu are four. There are four obligatory parts of wudu. The virtue of wudu is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the main virtue of wudu is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the acceptance of prayer upon wudu. Meaning that if a person doesn't have wudu, their prayer is not accepted. So that's the greatest virtue of wudu, meaning that if you don't have wudu, your prayer is not considered valid. Other than that, as mentioned in the hadith as well, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ. Allah does not accept the prayer of any of you if they lose their wudu until they make wudu. Until they make wudu. So the validity and acceptance of prayer is dependent upon the person having wudu. Dependent upon the person having wudu. And the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned to us that the sign that the believers will be recognized with on the Day of Judgment is the parts of the wudu. Is the parts of the limbs of wudu. Nabi ﷺ, he said in a hadith that إِنَّ أُمَّتِي يُدْعَوْنَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ غُرًّا مُحَجَّلِينَ مِنْ أَثْرِ الْوُضُوءِ. That my ummah, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, my ummah will be called upon on the Day of Judgment. غُرًّا مُحَجَّلِينَ. غُرًّا مُحَجَّلِينَ, meaning that they are, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave like a description of a horse that is completely black with a white head, for instance. You'll be able to tell it out from amongst the horses that you have. The believers on the Day of Judgment, they'll have their limbs that they made wudu with will be shining on the Day of Judgment from nur. And the face, the hands and the arms and the feet and the head, these parts of wudu will be shining on the Day of Judgment. That's why Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, the narrator of the hadith, he said, فَمِنْ اسْتَطَاعَ أَنْ يُطِيلَ غُرَّتَهُ فَلْيُطِلْ. Whoever is able to lengthen that part, then let him lengthen that part. And that was the opinion of Abu Hurairah. Where he used to make wudu, he didn't used to stop at his elbow, he would go up to the midway of his arm. Working of this hadith, that the more that you wash, the more of shine that you have. It will wash up to half of his foot, and so forth. So the ummah on the Day of Judgment will be known, will be able to, they will stand out on the Day of Judgment from what? From their places that they used to make wudu with, and the shininess of wudu. And there's many other ahadith. The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentioned that the believer, when he makes wudu, that the sins drop with the last drop of water. If the person washes their hands, then the sins that their hands has committed, the sins drop out with the last drop of water. The same with the face and the arms and the feet and so forth. So it's a purification, not only for the body, also for the heart, and the purification of the sins. A purification of the sins. The conditions of wudu, meaning the prerequisites of wudu. There are three prerequisites of wudu. The first is that there should be nothing that is still going or still flowing, that makes the person lose the wudu, except for the person who is excused. What does that mean? It means that as long as there is something that is exiting the private parts, then the wudu is not accepted, except for the person who has an excuse. Like salas al-bawl, or salas al-bawl is the person who continuously has drops of urine, continuous drops of urine that exit the body, and this is a disease or this is a sickness, continuously has so to the extent where they're not able to pray without them feeling or without a drop of water exiting or drop of urine exiting. This is a person who's called ma'dhur, meaning he's excused, and we'll come to their rulings separately. Their rulings is that they have to make wudu for every fard prayer and then pray straight away. Or the person who constantly has wind. They're always feeling wind. That is someone who is ma'dhur. So these things have to be stopped in order for a person to make wudu. The second is that the complete part of the body, of the limb, has to be washed. You can't do half of the arm, half of the foot. You have to do the complete body. So if there's a ring, person has a ring that's tight, that ring has to be moved, or has to be taken off. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before he'd enter into the place of wudu, before he'd make wudu, he'd turn his ring to make sure that the water has gone under the place of the ring, where his ring is. So if the ring is tight, you have to remove that ring to make sure that the water that the water goes under it. The third is that there should be nothing on the body of that person that prevents the water from what? From touching the skin. Like if a person has paint or glue on their hand, that glue or that paint, it has to be removed before the person makes wudu, to make sure that the water reaches the skin. Same thing with the females, for instance, nail polish. Nail polish is something that prevents water from reaching the nails, and the nails are part of wudu. So if a female has nail polish on and she loses her wudu and wants to remake her wudu, she has to remove the nail polish. There's supposed to be something around today that's nail polish that water doesn't prevent water from going to the nail. Allahu a'lam how correct that is. But they're saying, there's a manufacturer that's saying that there's nail polish that doesn't prevent the water from going through. It's more like a shade over it. For instance, if the females have henna on, they put henna on, which is permissible for the females to do so. That henna doesn't prevent the water from going to the skin, because it's more like a stain. Than it is something that is preventing the water. So anything that prevents water from reaching the body part, it prevents the wudu from being accepted. Now there are four obligatory parts of wudu that are agreed upon between the ulama, and they are mentioned in the verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, the 6th verse of Surah Al-Ma'idah. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا قُمْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ. 4 parts. O you who believe, if you get up to pray, then wash, فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ, wash your faces, وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ, and your hands, your arms until your elbows, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, and wipe your heads, وَبِأَرْجُلِكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ, and your feet until the ankles. These are the 4 obligatory actions of wudu, and these actions are agreed upon that they are obligatory, meaning that if a person makes wudu and washes washes the 3 parts the face, the arms and the feet, the arms until the elbows, the feet until the ankles, and then wipes their head once and washes each body part once, they can pray in that wudu. They are able to pray with that wudu. I mean, if you wash your face once, do your arm once, your left once, wipe your head once, your right foot once, your left foot once, you are able to pray. You are able to pray. These are the obligatory parts of wudu. What is the limit of each part? The limit of the face is from the edge of the hairline, the natural, the edge of the forehead, where your forehead begins from the top, down all the way to the bottom of the chin. The bottom of the chin. That's from top to bottom. From the side to side, it's the shahmatay al-udhun, the part of the hanging part of the ears. So here, this part of the ears, if you see here, this part of the ear has to be washed. And when you're washing your face, you have to make sure that your hands touch the edge of your ears. The edge of your ears. That is the limit, or that is what is called the face. That is what is called the face. But with regards to the beard, if a person has a beard, person who has a beard either has a light beard, like myself you can say, or a person has a thick beard. What differentiates between a light and a thick beard? The light beard is the beard that you can see the skin. You can see the skin through the beard. The thick beard is the beard that you can't see the skin through it. It's that thick, or it's thick to the extent where you can't see the skin. So what's the difference between the two? The difference between the two is that if a person has a light beard, meaning their skin is apparent, then you have to make sure that water reaches the skin. You have to make sure that water reaches the skin. It's not sufficient enough to what? To wipe over it. You have to make sure that the water gets in. You have to make sure the water goes through. If a person has a thick beard, it's sufficient enough for them to what? To wipe over it. It's sufficient enough for them to wipe over it. And then to go over the rest of their beard. To go over the rest of their beard. Except for the Hanafi madhab. The Hanafi madhab says that you don't have to wipe or wash the remainder of the beard, only that which is around the face. So if a person has a beard and it goes beyond their face, it is sunnah, not obligatory according to the Ahnaf, the Hanafi madhab, to what? To go through it with your fingers. Takhleel, they call it takhleel. So it's sunnah to do so. The other madhab say it's fard. Because it's attached to the face, means you have to do it with the face. With the face. So if you have a thick beard, what you have to do is wipe over it all the way down. All the way down the beard. And that's the face. And that's what is considered as the face. The second obligatory part, and it's not obligatory to what? It's not obligatory for water to reach the inner sides of the lips or inside of the eyes. It is mentioned that Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, he used to wash inside his eye. Meaning that he would keep his eye open and he would wash when he washes his face. And that is mentioned as one of the reasons that he went blind before he died. He went blind before he died. He used to wash inside. He used to say, this is part of the face. This is part of the face. But the majority of ulama say that it is not. The second obligatory part or limb of wudu is the arms. Now the arms begin from the fingers all the way to the elbows, including the elbow. Including the elbow. So it's obligatory that every part of the hand is washed. From the fingers all the way to the elbow. Beyond the elbow, so they have to make sure that the elbow is included in that wash. A lot of the times you find brothers who are making wudu, their elbows are still dry. They've finished doing their hand, they just do around it like that. Or sometimes the shirt is even covering the elbow. and they make wudu, they're in a hurry, they make wudu, they go out and the elbows are still what? Are still dry. That in itself is a what? Invalidates that wudu. So that person is in a hurry to go and to pray, and they want to make the jama'ah, they get to the jama'ah, they pray, but their wudu, their prayer is not what? Their prayer is not accepted. Because the elbow wasn't included in the wudu. So the elbow has to be included in the wudu, and the fingers. And the fingers. There are different ways that people do. People put their hands under it, people put water and then do their arms and so forth. But at the end of washing the arms, you go through your fingers. So you're washing your arm, when you finish, you just do it once. Put your fingers between and go all the way up. Because it's obligatory for the hands, the fingers to be also washed in wudu. It's obligatory for them to be washed. The fourth or the third, obligatory limb or part of wudu is wiping the head. Wiping the head. The face, as we said, begins from the top of the forehead all the way down to the chin. The head begins from the top of the forehead all the way back to the beginning of the neck. To the beginning of the neck at the back. Now here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ. He says, and wipe your heads. But how much of the head is to be wiped? Or what's obligatory? We're talking here about obligatory, and we're talking about the bare minimum. The bare minimum. There are three famous madahib within the ulama with regards to how much of the head has to be wiped. The Hanafi madhab says how much? 1/3, which is one hand. So you got one hand, 2, 3. So the area that one hand takes from the head, that's obligatory. We're not talking about sunnah. Sunnah, they agree that it's the whole head. We're talking about obligatory. Yani we're talking about the minimum that you're able to do. The Ahnaf, he said that it's 1/3 of the head. Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, yani, to wipe your heads, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is directing to the limb that you wipe your head with, which is the hand. So the bare minimum is the area that is covered by one hand. So they said 1/3. The Shafi'iyya, they said 3 hairs. Shafi'iyya, they said 3 hairs. And this is something that facilitates it a lot for the females. Meaning that the female, it's sufficient enough for her, according to the Shafi'i madhab, for her to put in her fingers under her hijab with water to wipe, and that's it. They've wiped, she's wiped her head. She's done the obligatory according to the Shafi'i madhab. They said that it's only what? The only 3 hairs, which is really nothing. Which is nothing. So it's enough for them if she's in an area, public toilet, there's nowhere for her to make wudu, there's people coming in and out, she makes wudu and she what? Without uncovering her scarf, she just puts her fingers in and wipes, and that's it. And she's wiped her head. The Hanbali and the Maliki madhab, they said that it is obligatory to wipe the whole head. It's obligatory to wipe the whole head. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, your head meaning your whole head. And the ba here to them is za'idah, it's extra, it doesn't give any meaning. بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, the ba here doesn't give any meaning. So they said it's the whole head. It's the whole head. And that's with the madhahib when it comes to wiping the head. The fourth obligatory action that is agreed upon is the feet. And it's agreed upon that the feet obligatory is from the toes up until the ankles, and including the ankles. Including the ankles. And included in that is the heels. Is the heels. So you have to make sure that all of your foot is what is covered. All of the foot is covered with water. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentioned in the hadith, after one of the battles and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were making wudu, and he had noticed that some of them had missed their heels. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he looked and he said, Waylun lil a'qabi min an-nar. Waylun lil a'qabi min an-nar. Woe to the whales from the hellfire. From the heels, woe to the wheels from the hellfire. The heels, because they weren't included or water didn't reach them, then that invalidated their prayers. That invalidated their prayers. So it's very important that the obligatory actions of wudu are preserved, and they are made sure that they are done the way that the Prophet ﷺ he had mentioned, in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned in the verse of wudu. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha qumtum ila as-salati faghsilu wujuhakum wa aydiyakum ila al-marafiqi wamsahu bi ru'usikum wa arjulikum in one qira'ah, and wa arjulakum in another qira'ah. Now here the Shia, they use this qira'ah wamsahu bi ru'usikum and wa arjulikum, both of them have kasra, to say that it's only obligatory to wipe over the feet. So you'll find the Shia that they'll only wipe over their feet, and they won't wash their feet. And they won't wash their feet. And that's something that is completely incorrect. Completely incorrect. But that's not our position to refute that. But the obligatory actions of wudu are, as we said, the face. And when it comes to the beads, make sure that the bead, if you have a light bead, you have to make sure water reaches the skin. If you have a thick beard, it's sufficient enough to go over it. And to the arms, to make sure that the elbows are included. When you finish, when you do your wudu and you do your arms 3 times, at the end, just take your hand and go over it with water. As you're washing, just go over it with your hand, and that's it. To make sure that the elbow is also included. And the head, as we mentioned, the 3 madhahib, and the feet, and to make sure that the ankles and the heels are covered with water, are also covered with water, so that the wudu can be valid. That the wudu can be valid. These are the 4 obligatory actions that are agreed upon between the ulama. There are other obligatory actions that there's a difference in opinion surrounding their obligatory, and that is the niyyah, the intention, tartib, the order, al-muwalat, making sure that there's no pause between each washing or each limb that is washed, and at-tadliq, meaning you have to to run or to make sure that your hand is washing. Not sufficient enough to just run water under. For instance, for your feet, you can't just put your feet there, 1, 2, 3. There has to be tadliq. Tadliq is what is cleaning with the hand, going over with the hand. The Ahnaf, they said that none of them are fard. The niyyah is not fard. The order in which the wudu is mentioned is not fard. Al-muwalat, there's no pause between them, is also not fard. And the tadliq is also not fard. At-tadliq is also not fard. The Hanafi madhab says none of them are fard because they are not mentioned in the verse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned. The Shafi'iyya, they said that the intention and the order, at-tartib, is fard. What's the difference between the two? The difference between the two is that it is sufficient enough for the Hanafi to make the wudu without having a specific intention. The Shafi'i has to have a specific intention. That he's making wudu to pray. He's making wudu to pray. The Ahnaf, you don't have to have intention. With regards to order, the Shafi'iyya say that the order of wudu that is narrated upon the Prophet ﷺ and that which is in the Qur'an is obligatory, meaning you have to follow the order. Meaning that if you're making wudu and you get up to your feet and you remember that you forgot to wipe your head, in the Shafi'i madhab you have to Repeat it. In the Hanafi madhab, you did your feet and then you remembered I didn't wash or didn't wipe my head. All you have to do is what? Wipe your head and your wudu is valid. You didn't make it an obligatory action that it has to be in order. It has to be in order. That's the Hanafi madhab. They said the verse does not, the order of the verse doesn't or is not mentioned in Arabic language in the sense that this is how it has to be done in order. And there's a lot of, based upon linguistic differences, the waw is al-waw lil-tartib or al-waw lil-jama' or there's a lot of different going and coming, giving and taking when it comes to this refutation. The Hanabila, they said the niyyah, the tartib, the order, and al-muwalat is also what? Is also obligatory. What does muwalat mean? Muwalat means that you're not able to pause. It's not able to pause, meaning that the Ahnaf and the Shafi'iyah, if a person is making wudu in a public toilet, for instance, and washes their right foot, and then before taking their right foot out, they dry it. They dry it while it's still above the sink so they don't bring the water down to what? To the floor. He dries it, puts it down, then puts his left foot up. According to the Hanafi and the Shafi'i madhab, that's fine. According to the Hanabila, the Hanbali and the Maliki madhab, it's invalid. It has to be, you wash your right foot, you have to wash your left foot after it straight away. You can't pause between them. You can't pause between them. Or for instance, you're making wudu and your mother calls you from outside. Calls you once, calls you twice, calls you 3 times. The voice is getting louder, so you open the door and you put your head out and you say, yes mum. What can I do? I was just making wudu, forgive me. Don't go out and go off at her and, what do you want? I'm making wudu and I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. Mahak? It's in another world. Allah yaftah alaik. The Hanafi and the Shafi'i madhab, if you do so and you come back, you just continue where you had paused. You just continue where you had paused. On the Hanabila and the Malikiyya, you can't do so. There has to be what? Al-muwalat. They have to be after each other. Straight away, with nothing in between them. No pauses in between them. The Maliki madhab, they said that the niyyah, muwalat and tadliq without tartib, meaning that the intention has to be after each other with no pauses, and the wiping, you have to use your hands in wiping over tadliq. What's the tadliq mean? Tadliq. Scrubbing. You have to use your hands to scrub over them. They added that it has to be done so. They added that it has to be done like that. And this is with regards to the obligatory actions of wudu, that there is difference of opinion between them. And inshallah ta'ala next week we'll continue with the sunan of wudu. We'll continue with the sunan of wudu next week, and we'll go through the different sunan of wudu, and we'll continue from there inshallah ta'ala. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Na'am, tfaddal.
This time where I made wudu, I'm going to pray, and I see there's something on my hand. So if I follow and wash, take the glove off and wash my hands, that's it for wudu?
No. No. In that case, if you are making wudu and you find glue on your hand, it's sufficient enough for you to stop there and then and to take that glue off and then to continue your wudu.
Yeah, at the time where I finished my wudu, I went to go pray, and I see that there's glue on my hand, like there's
Yeah, now you have to go back and continue. The pause, the Ahnaf and the Shafi'i didn't say that it has to be straight after each other. Meaning that if there's a small pause or if there's a small action, but the person is left, gone, and is going to start to pray or change something together, and then saw that there's a place, then you have to go back and repeat the wudu again.
Start again.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find that it's awkward, like this to me. I don't know my thing in there. What I might do is I take my sock off, wet my hands, and go like that.
That's fine. As long as you make sure that water has reached.
Yeah, so that's all right to do.
Yeah.
I can wet my hands.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, all right.
As long as you put water in your hand and you wash over your feet. Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
Is it better to elongate the wudu? So, for example, to the elbow, you want to make sure so you go halfway up to your arm.
Now, we mentioned in the beginning the hadith of Abu Hurairah. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that my ummah will be sent on the day of judgment غُرًّا مُحَجَّلِينَ مِنْ أَثَرِ الوُضُوء, that they'll be shining, they'll be known from the what? From there, the way they made the wudu, the parts of wudu. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he added, he mentioned here, فَمِنِ اسْتَطَاعَ أَن يُطِيلَ غُرَّتَهُ فَلْيُطِلْ. Whoever is able to elongate it as much as they can, then to do so. But that's the opinion of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. It wasn't narrated the Prophet ﷺ used to go halfway to his shoulder. No, here the understanding of Abu Hurairah, and that's why I said it's his interpretation. He said that you can elongate it, and that's the minimum. You can do a bit longer. You can do a bit longer, and that's what Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu used to do. He used to do a bit longer. Yeah, you can do a bit longer, and as long as you're not, about to have a shower, and you're making wudu, you're about to have a shower.
So, is it sufficient just for the water to touch all your parts, or because you can't physically touch every part of the?
Yeah, who are the water? And according to the ones that it was only the Maliki that said that you have to actually physically, but the rest of them they have, as long as water reaches that part.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, you're wiping your arm, for instance, and you might miss a section, but the water's got to that.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, as long as water has.
Can't physically stop.
Yeah. That's why they said as long as water just reaches over it, and then that's it. And as long as there's not a dry part on that part on the body. The Malikiya said you have to scrub the whole thing. You have to do scrubbing. Now, and the fingers, that's in the Sunan. Yeah, you have to make sure that.
Just water,
Yeah. The Sunnah is to use the pinky, and to go through.
If you don't use it.
If you don't use the pinky, you use the thumb, for instance. Or you just separate between the fingers, that's fine.
It's enough just water.
Yeah. To separate between them, that's fine.
No.
You don't have to actually use the pinky. No.
Jack, what if you put your foot under the water, get the water, and then you wipe it 3 times? Is that suffice, or do you got to put water on it 3 times?
No, if you wipe it 3 times, that's fine.
So if you wet it and then you wipe it 3 times, that suffices.
It's best to combine between the two. Between having the foot underwater and using the hands.
Because sometimes you're restricted.
But if you have it, as you said, the fard is once. The fard is once. So as long as you've done it once, then that's it. Alhamdulillah. You've done the fard.
But if you have bandage, plastic bandage, if you cut in plastic bandage,
If a person has a band-aid, then that band-aid has to be removed. Unless it's harmful for the band-aid to remain, or it's harmful, for the band-aid to be removed, meaning that the water shouldn't reach that area. But if you just have a cut on the finger, then you have to take the band-aid off, make wudu, and then put the band-aid on. It's only when the person, for instance, broken their arm or has a cut that is deep that has to be covered and no water is allowed to reach it. If that is the case, then you can wipe over it. But if the cut is a small cut, or there's no harm in water reaching to where the cut is, then you have to remove the band-aid. It has to be removed. It's not an excuse. The only excuse is when water reaching that place is harmful. Water reaching that place is harmful.
What about if you're ignorant? For instance, I've never heard of the ring being removed. Right? I've always, so I've done it. Does that mean all my prayers aren't done?
Now the person with the ring, as you said, if the ring is tight, if the ring is tight, then it has to be removed.
But my question is, say you've done it out of ignorance. Like,
Yeah.
my life I've been doing it that way. And
Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept, inshallah. Inshallah. Now.
If you eat before you pray, and then
You can still pray. It's best not to, because if there's still food in your mouth, then no, you can't. But if there's pieces here and there that are in the mouth, and then as you begin to pray, and that's the person should clean their mouth out before going to pray. You don't have to make wudu if you already have wudu, but just to go in to do the madmada 3 times to get all the food out. Because if the food reaches the ulama, they gave, if it reaches the size of a chickpea, or just a bit under a chickpea, and you swallow it, then the prayer is invalidated. Then the prayer is invalidated. But if you don't swallow it, and it remains in the mouth, then you continue praying. And then when you finish, you take it out. But that's why it's better before you pray, if you've just eaten, before you pray, to what? Wash your mouth. And that's why it's sunnah to use the siwak. It's sunnah to use the siwak before you pray. So anything that's there, you get it out, you swallow it, and then you begin praying. Or else you're going to start the praying, and this is here, and then you...
what about chewing?
The same, you can't. Yeah.
Will be removed?
Has to be removed. وإياكم.
I was just praying now, I think I prayed 3, then I realised about like 2 minutes after I could have completed it. When I did that, what should I pray again?
What did you do, sorry?
I think I prayed 3 rak'at.
Yeah.
And then I remembered that I did 3 more.
Yeah, if you're praying Isha, you prayed 3 rak'at, and then you did taslim, you did salam.
Yeah, I think I was sitting there for like a minute, and then I remembered that
If you're still in the same place, and you haven't spoken to anyone, haven't moved,
I think I sat like this for about a minute.
and you haven't moved, then you can get up.
If I sat like this, it'll be alright.
If you sat like that, how long were you sitting for?
At least a minute, it was about a minute.
Yeah, it's better to repeat it. Yeah, but if the person is still sitting there, the person's sitting down, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, and is sitting down, begins this. I prayed 3 rak'at. You're speaking to yourself. You didn't turn around. Assalamu alaikum, what did you do today? Assalamu alaikum, how'd you go? This together. You haven't spoken to anyone. You just Allahu Akbar. You get up and you continue praying. And then when you come to the rak'ah again, you do sujood al-sahu, you do taslim, and that's it. It's finished. And that happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. He got up and he continued. But if the person's sitting down and the period of time is long, is about 1 minute or 2 minutes, but he remained in the same position and he was thinking, did I pray 3, did I pray 4, did I pray 3, did I pray 4, I prayed 3. Then you can get up. But if the person moved around and changed the position and sat down and then realized, no, it's better to repeat. It's better to repeat. Wallahu a'lam.
With a sahur?
No, khalas, that's it. You just have to repeat it, yeah. You just have to repeat the prayer.
Sheikh, with the wudu, if you know you've kept it, is it, but you want to do it again, is it recommended to do it again?
It's virtuous, yeah.
It is,
Yeah. It's virtuous to do it. The verse that we mentioned with regards to wudu, if you take it upon literally, it means that you have to make wudu for every prayer. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم. Yani every time you get up and you want to pray, you have to make wudu. That's what the verse means. There's a hadith narrated by Umar radiallahu anhu where he says, he went to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, I saw you do something today that you never did before. He said, what was that? He said, you prayed without making wudu. He said, yes, I did so that you can learn, you can observe that if the person has wudu, it's not obligatory to make wudu. Meaning that if you've prayed dhuhr prayer and then all the way to asr, you didn't lose your wudu. You didn't go to the toilet, didn't break wind, didn't do anything. It's sufficient enough for you to what? To pray, dhri, straight away, without having to make wudu. Or if you want to renew your wudu, the ulama, they say that it's mustahab for a person to make wudu if they've done a sin and they want to do a ibadah, to make wudu. So we're going to have to make wudu for every prayer, but that's mustahab, it's virtuous. And wudu in itself, wudu is a sort of independent worship, meaning you can make wudu for just wanting to read the Qur'an, for instance. You can make wudu just for cleanliness. You can make wudu for the sake of purification. So it's an independent worship. It can be done on its own. And it's virtuous for every prayer to renew your wudu, you can do so. As long as there's no wasting of water. No wasting of water. Wallahu a'lam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Every Muslim dreams to be up in Jannah, 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 Jannah. A pious person's destiny. Inshallah in Jannah, 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 Jannah.